Let's look at the space exploration megatrend. First off, read this disclaimer carefully and do your good deed of the day by liking and subscribing. We have the space exploration theme here. Pretty decent move here from the low, but we have seen some substantial pullbacks in certain stocks, especially Virgin Galactic. I've categorized it as spaceflight, so very much space exploration. 56-ish% here from the low, 52-week low, but the biggest haircut of them all. But that can open up opportunities. Okay, here is the company's website, very fancy. Together we open space to change the world for good. So definitively, this is a very interesting company. It gives you one of the more direct exposures to this theme. If we do look at the charts, SPCE is the ticker. So here you can see that this stock, it certainly moves in waves. I did try to paint in cycle patterns, but it didn't really work. But you can see that there is this cyclicality to this stock. There is this wave nature. We see that the dark blue 100-week moving average, it has been a very important support level in the past. We almost tested that moving average quite recently. I mean, this is one of the issues. Sometimes you do get a very beautiful test of a moving average surgical support, and then we can rally. But there are also times where you do not get that opportunity. Given the interest that we have seen around this stock before, there is a risk that we might not test that moving average, that maybe, if the bulls show up, this could, have been, that low before the next rally. That is, of course, to be determined. What I do find interesting is that this stock has this mirror effect. You see here that this is very much connected to the time cyclicality of the stock, in which you have this wave up and wave down. If we look at the waves that formed this pattern, which certainly looks a lot like a head and shoulders pattern, but in the context in which it develops, it could work out differently. As such, not necessarily being, super bearish. Looking at the mirror effect here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, bullish candlesticks formed that shoulder. If we look at this shoulder here, so you could say that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that formed this pullback. So 6 up, 6 down. If we look at the formation of the head, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clearly bullish candlesticks forming the rally, then 1, 2, 3, 4 that formed the pullback. So there is this mirror. So that's basically, for us now, it increases the likelihood that we will see some kind of rally. Could be just a bounce, but potentially something more. It is obviously hard to call. If we compare the current RSI level with where we were back when we tested the blue 100-week moving average, we are currently at virtually the identical level. That also is interesting from a more bullish, speculatively standpoint. But let's explore further. So here we have the daily data points. So when it comes to the daily data points, then we have sliced through all kinds of moving averages. So technically speaking, this is not very attractive. If we look at some previous times where we tested the lower end of the RSI, we got oversold. Here, it did form a temporary low. Here, again, it did form a temporary low. We saw a little bit of a bounce, but in this case, we did see failure due to resistance at the dark blue 100-day moving average. In this instance, we did form a key low. We did have a rally, but it did eventually fail, but at least we did get a decent rally. we are at that level now, that oversold, well, low RSI level, which supports, a more speculative bullish thesis. But due to the way the stock has behaved in the past, there's good reason to lock in profits if it it works out, and also a good idea to have a very clear stop level as well, in case this head and shoulders pattern, instead of offering a cluster of horizontal support levels, which is one way a head and shoulders pattern can play out, which is more of a bullish direction, of course. There is of course the possibility that the head and shoulders will have that bearish development that it is infamous for. But head and shoulders are messy. They can be interpreted as being that classical bearish pattern, but the paradox of the head and shoulders is that around the neck region you will also have a cluster of horizontal support levels. If we look at the seasonality of space, May is a mediocre month. We do not have that many years of data, but May is mediocre. But the tricky thing is that June and July are some of the stronger months. So it's a bit of a messy situation from a seasonality perspective. Looking here at Finviz and the analyst price targets, if we do compare the current price of the stock with the price target, they suggest a 68% upside. That's definitively a bullish direction. Looking at Sachs, they have a number 3 hold, F value, F growth, but they do actually have a B momentum score. The industry rank is kind of broad, bottom 15%, aerospace defense. There is no dividend. It's a sizable company, 5 billion in market cap. There are alternative ways to get exposure to the space exploration theme. You do have the UFO Procure Space ETF. That one is pretty good. If we look here at the holdings, they have a bunch of companies that are, relatively, strongly related to that theme. The reason I wanted to talk a bit about ETFs now is because of ARKX. I am very upset about this ETF, frankly, because when you look at the name Space Exploration and Innovation, it sounds like basically a space exploration ETF. But when we look at the holdings, I think it is very problematic. 3D printing ETF. Why is that one here? Amazon.com, Google, Nvidia, Deere & Company, Netflix? Seriously? Alibaba Group? We have a bunch of stocks in this ETF that are like, just far too indirect. Netflix, what does Netflix has to do with space exploration? This ETF, it does highlight a key issue with ETFs. You need to be very careful about how they are named, so always look under the hood to research whether you are getting exposure to the actual theme you think you are getting exposure to. This is one of the reasons why I created these megatrends, is because when I make these themes, I put stocks here that are very, very direct. They give you as direct as possible exposure to the theme. It's this is just this is a major problem in the ETF space, and hopefully it will be resolved. But yeah, definitively something to think about if you are investing in ETFs.